Okay, we are back. We are back. Let me make sure we've got everything in place. There we go. There we go. And then we got to go here. And we go here. Little copy and paste fail. Go ahead and play the intro music here. Oh, I need to, this is a disaster. Just kidding. All right. And then we go. Everybody file in here. All my audio listeners. But gotta spread the good word. Many times. This is a one-man operation. So we're just getting everything dialed in here. That's all. And we're back. Man, I got a haircut yesterday. You know, I've been growing it out the last year, and typically when I get a haircut, it doesn't look much different month in, month out. But he finally chopped a little bit of extra lettuce off, and I'm liking my do right now. I call it a piece. I call a hairdo someone's piece. I like my piece right now. What it is, man, what's going on today? Welcome. This is number 80. This is episode 81 of In the Jar. We're moving along, man. It's been fun going live every day with you guys on this show and being able to share sports news down to the last minute. I like having a show in the afternoon as well, because there's some stuff that happens throughout the day that some of the earlier programs just may not be able to cover. So today we've got a pretty full show for a Wednesday. All right, there's no games last night. There's no craziness that we really need to embark upon. But Mike Gundy was fired after 21 years. He was the longest tenured head coach in college football from Oklahoma State yesterday. So we'll get into that, kind of what happened there. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer, guy I've been hearing about a whole lot. John Mateer, he's out with a thumb injury for 3 to 8 weeks as Oklahoma obviously tries to make a push with one of the top quarterbacks. I think he's the Heisman front runner right now. John Mateer, it's his throwing thumb. We'll talk about that. We've got a couple NFL injuries. CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Najee Harris. We'll get into that. Talk about some potential replacements for Oklahoma State head coach Mike Gundy. Bill Belichick, more shit going on about him and his girlfriend. We'll talk about that. And then the headline of the show, the headline of today's show, is the Eagles' offense boring? And we'll start there. So, also, before we go there, one thing I didn't touch on yesterday that I wanted to touch on that I forgot to touch on was so I'm going to Ole Miss LSU this weekend. I'm really excited. My second cousins are Ole Miss people. They invited me to come down to Oxford. They said pick a game. I took a look at the schedule, and it's funny. I got two distinct separate groups of second cousins. We all stay pretty close. We all do a family reunion in a random spot every 2 years. And I was at a family reunion about 7 weeks ago, and I was standing up in a room with all my cousins, and they said, "Yeah, we've got a suite at the we've always had a suite at Vaught Hemingway Stadium, and if you want to come down to Oxford for a game this year, just pick a game." And we'll get you in the box. And I pulled my phone right out. I pulled up the schedule right then and there. And I saw college football. I can't remember if it's week 4 or week 5 in college football. Whatever week it was, I saw that LSU game. And I said, I'm trying to come to that. I'm trying to come to that LSU game. I didn't know how serious my cousins were with this offer. And so I have two distinct groups of cousins. Half of them live in Houston, Texas. They're all Ole Miss people. And then half of them live in New Orleans, Louisiana, or maybe a little more or less, 2/3, a third. But my New Orleans family, they're obviously big LSU fans. And so not only am I going to get to see my family members from both sides, right, Ole Miss fans and LSU fans, interact as we embark on this game this weekend, I'm going to get to watch it all from a suite. And so I'm really fired up about that. And there's some stuff going on around this game. There's a lot of people buzzing about this Ole Miss LSU game this weekend, and for good reason. Okay? Not only is it two of the premier programs in college football right now, they're living up to expectations. They're winning football games. Lane Kiffin has completely redeemed himself in the eyes of the college football world. But LSU, it's playing pretty damn good football themselves. And I was hoping when I was standing up in this hotel room with all my cousins having a couple beverages, I was hoping that this game would be in the position that it's in as one of the premier games of college football. Obviously, we got Bama, Georgia this weekend as well. That's going to be a good one. And frankly, I have more allure to the Ole Miss LSU game than I do the Bama, Georgia game. Watching Bama week 1 and the whole Ryan Williams thing, it just has kind of turned me off from Bama. I don't think everybody knows, that's an obvious statement, that Bama is not the same Bama without Nick Saban. And I do think that college football is sorely missing these disciplinarian-type coaches. My head coach in college at Samford University down in Birmingham, Alabama, was not himself the most disciplinarian coach that there ever was. He didn't tolerate shit, but he was a pretty easygoing guy. He would head home, hammer a couple beers. He threw a couple of Copenhagen fine cuts in his lip after each ball game, after each win. There was a tradition we had in our locker room where our coach, Chris Hatcher, would take a victory dip, and he'd do it in front of the whole team. And he's very superstitious. I don't mean to get off kilter here, off topic, but he's very superstitious. And, he had his things that he would say, "Hey, nothing like being a Samford Bulldog on a Saturday night. There's a big win!" And everybody would fucking explode. But he had a victor. He would pull out his can of Copenhagen Fine Cut, and he would stick it. He would get a little pinch in there, and everyone would be like, "Oh shit, oh shit," and then he'd go. And he would stick it in there, like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? But so he wasn't the most disciplinarian head coach of all. But our strength and conditioning coach, his name was Ben Ashford. He wasn't Marshall. He was the second highest paid guy, I believe, in the entire athletic administration at Marshall. I don't want to spread misinformation. That's just what I remember off off the top of my head. And I know Marshall had a big old thing a season, 2 seasons ago, where they got rid of their head coach and all the players loved the head coach, and a bunch of players left and a bunch of coaches left. So I don't think he's at Marshall anymore. But my former strength coach from Samford, he learned under Scott Cochran, who is that viral ex-Alabama strength coach. Go, yeah. That guy. A lot of college football fans know who I'm talking about. So my strength coach at college learned under Scott Cochran, and they were carbon copies of each other, except my strength coach, BA, we called him, was way more swole, big-ass beard, and just the most psychotic disciplinarian you've ever met in your life, and he changed my life for the better. He's one of the most influential figures I've ever had in my life. So we did have that disciplinarian, Alabama, Nick Saban type of culture implemented by him. And I just worry that this generation of kids, they don't respond to Nick Saban's anymore. They don't respond to Bill Belichick's anymore. You need this shit in college football today. These kids need a coach like Nick Saban, Bill Belichick, to frankly fucking flatline them when they talk out of line. We talked about it yesterday on the show. There's this fear right now in college football coaches, athletic directors, university presidents, that if they talk out of turn at a high-profile kid, that he's just going to fucking leave. He's just going to be gone. And these kids, they run rampant on everybody, and it's not the way it needs to be. You got to have a disciplinarian, like Saban in there. And I really hope Saban starts to get involved. It seems like he is on Capitol Hill. There's got to be some kind of college football committee where Nick Saban heads that thing up. But you just don't have enough of these coaches in college football anymore. You got coaches like Marcus Freeman, who look like they could be on the cover of GQ. I'm not knocking him as a coach, but where did the grit go? You know what I'm saying? Where did the grittiness go in college football? It's gone because we don't have people like Nick Saban in college football anymore. We do have Bill Belichick in college football, but he seems to be vastly compromised by this woman in his life. This woman must have some craziness between her legs, let me tell you what. I feel like Bill Belichick, if anybody in here watches Lord of the Rings, have you ever seen that King of Rohan that has that nasty guy in his corner casting spells on him, and he's just sitting there in the throne like a shell of himself, and meanwhile that warlock controlling him is calling all the shots in the country? That's what I feel like Bill Belichick is right now. Bill Belichick is stepping to the side during warm-ups, during the game, to have a chat with his girlfriend about what? What are they talking about? What could be that important that Bill Belichick is going to the side? This is the grittiest, most locked in, greatest head coach of all time. And he's not even immune to pussy power. Clearly, he's not immune to pussy power, dude. Because she's pulling him to the fucking side during warm-ups. Warm-ups are one of the most important times as a head coach to be locked in. Why? Because you got to be looking around to see if your guys are ready or not. If they're locked in. I know I got my boy horse racing in here. What do you do as a handicapper before a big horse race? You go out to the paddock and you watch each racehorse walk around. And you see, okay, this one looks lackadaisical. This one looks pissed off. He looks a little jittery. He might come out of the gate hot. I might bet him. Right? When you're a head coach in college football, warm-ups on game day are one of the most important times to be locked in and to see who's dialed and who's not. Who do I need to incorporate in the game today? Who can I lean on today? And maybe whose head's not in there today? Because when you're a coach, I remember at Samford University, I was a walk-on. I was a scout guy. I tried to play special teams. I spent a lot of time with my strength coach, B.A., during practice, who I mentioned a minute ago. I spent a lot of time with him. And, again, he spent time at Bama, under Saban, under Cochran. This guy that I spent time with during practice every day was a master at gauging body language. He was a master at standing on the side, because I used to always come out early because I was always nervous and scared to ever be late. I would come out early and just kind of toss the ball around, do whatever I had to do. I was dressed early because I couldn't afford to be late. And so a lot of times I would stand out there with my strength coach and we would talk, and he would be able to just call it. If somebody runs out of the field house a certain way, he'd be like, he ain't got it today. I'd be like, how do you know that? He'd be like, he just ain't got it. Trust me. And then that guy would have a bad practice. I don't know if it was a self-fulfilling prophecy or whether my perception was biased based off his statements, but it always was true. And so as a coach, you have to be an expert vibe evaluator, if you will. And warm-ups before a game are the perfect time to do that. And Bill Belichick's got his fucking 24-year-old girlfriend pulling him to the side during warm-ups. What could be that important? You didn't compliment my outfit this morning. The shit women pull you aside for, really? Really? Everybody in the chat knows when your woman pulls you aside, how many times out of 10 is it a productive conversation? How many? Maybe a 10% clip. Maybe. And Jordan Hudson, whatever her name is, Jordan Hudson, whatever her name is, she might be closer to 3 or 4 out of 10, but I guarantee you it's not over 50%. And she's got this pussy power over Bill, so he feels like he's got to be like, oh yeah, that's really important. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I agree. He doesn't look like that. Yeah. Oh, I agree. When a woman pulls you aside, when your lady pulls you aside, how many times out of 10 is it really important? You're coaching Division I football. You got to be locked in. And I'm not sitting here telling Bill Belichick how to coach or how to operate during game day. I just know that pussy power is very, very powerful. And it can take our best men from us. Like that. It can take our best men from us very quickly. So that's my rant about that. We got to have more disciplinarian type coaches in college football. And really we got one of them there, and I feel like he's just possessed by pussy power. I've used that term a lot, but I feel like that's the best way to describe it. So Mike Gundy was fired from Oklahoma State yesterday. He was the longest tenured head coach in college football. They lost to Tulsa, and then they got absolutely blown out by Oregon. And Mike Gundy gets fired after 21 years. And it's one of the again, it's a hallmark of where we're at in college football today. In this era of NIL, you look at the numbers here for Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State. They only had $10 million a year to dispose of for NIL purposes. The average program at their size, to my knowledge, has access to about 30 to 40 million a year. So you're telling me with that limited amount of bankroll that Mike Gundy's going to be able to drive down to the Kansas State line and get all of these top prospects to come play for him at Oklahoma State? You're playing a fool's game. So apparently what happened was Oklahoma State had a huge donor, a billionaire donor, the Pokes did, who croaked recently. And apparently whoever that big donor's heirs were, they weren't really interested in helping out the hometown Oklahoma State Pokes with their NIL endeavors anymore. So that's an interesting component. Then you think about the fact that they're in a conference that really isn't all that much anymore. The Big 12 kind of reminds me of the ghost of the old Big East Conference, right? You got all these schools in there that are pretty decent sized, but they're never really going to be any national contenders in that conference. And what I understand with Oklahoma State, along with the fact that they had some bad luck and they had a huge donor die, and the donor's descendants didn't have any interest in donating to the athletic program anymore. They also don't have that year-in, year-out game or rivalry really anymore with Oklahoma, the University of Oklahoma, who now, as we all know, is in the SEC. So it's really tough. I mean, if you're Mike Gundy, you probably see this writing on the wall way before any of us got this news that he was fired yesterday. You know, you lose to Tulsa, and then you lose to Oregon handily. Writing's kind of on the wall, and it's pretty obvious when you have a third or a fourth of the NIL bankroll that all of your competitor schools have access to. You're not going to be able to recruit. And when you can't recruit, you can't put the best personnel on the field. And when you can't put the best personnel on the field, even if you're a coaching wizard, you're probably going to come up short. And you're probably going to be the scapegoat. And you're probably going to get fired. So it's just a tough series of events for an athletic program like Oklahoma State. Just seems like a lot of bad luck, because I do think NIL has helped level up a lot of mid-tier athletic programs that got lucky and have the donors. They have access to the funds to adequately recruit, because all these kids care about is money. And I understand it. Like, we opened a can of worms. We opened a Pandora's box that we cannot close with the NIL stuff. And I've said it before on the show. I probably say it every day on the show. I'm all for kids getting paid. It's the transfer portal shit that we got to change. So I think with the NIL, it's been a good opportunity for some programs with big donors to come in and become something. But a school like Oklahoma State is obviously a case where NIL has adversely affected the state of the athletic program due to some bad luck and reliance on, frankly, one big donor who croaked. So that's the story there. In terms of the replacements for Mike Gundy, we're looking at someone like Cliff Kingsbury. We're looking at a need for a young, hungry coach to come in and revitalize this program. It's going to take a little bit for Oklahoma State football to change the culture to the liking of whatever head coach comes in and takes the helm. The problem and the challenge will be, as we've stated exhaustingly at this point, recruiting. You have to think, too, on the flip side of that, if Oklahoma State was somehow able to coerce Cliff Kingsbury or somebody of that caliber to come and coach the Pokes, would more donors come out of the woodwork to assist in recruiting? Would the descendants of this now dead Oklahoma State donor billionaire be interested once again? Because I have heard from coaches in college football that Mike Gundy was a bit of a shady guy. that Mike Gundy didn't really handle his relationships with JUCO coaches, surrounding JUCO coaches, as tactfully as he could. That's just what I've heard from other coaches. Other coaches kind of say, Mike Gundy is kind of a slime ball. I don't have any facts to confirm that. I've never met Mike Gundy. I can just rely on what I have heard. But it's an interesting, there's downsides to all this, and there's cool aspects to it all too, because the game, like, relatively speaking, I'm a young guy. I'm 28 years old. When I was in college football in 2015 to 2018, it's just completely shifted. And I think that's probably a Captain Obvious statement. But the game of it is different. There's a game outside of the game. So would Oklahoma State be able to coerce a guy like Cliff Kingsbury from that OC job in Washington? Would they be able to do it? It's an interesting game, because you would probably have to have some level of donor commitments to get a guy like Cliff Kingsbury to say, okay, I'll leave this nice offensive coordinator job where I got Jaden Daniels. It's going to be a tough sell. There are a couple other names thrown out there. I didn't recognize them, so I didn't feel like they were worth bringing up on the show today. But you would probably have to, as the athletic director at Oklahoma State, get a couple of preemptive, like, feeler meetings with donors and say, hey, we're thinking about interviewing Cliff Kingsbury, but in order to get him, we're going to have to get some donor commitments. If we were to be able to hire Cliff Kingsbury, how much would you be able to put up for recruiting? Because I know Cliff Kingsbury is not going to come on board to that job with $10 million a year to allocate to NIL. It's just not going to happen, especially when their competitors are using $30 to $40 million. So I thought that was interesting. Back to the Ole Miss LSU game. I forgot to present the main storyline around this game, other than the fact that I'll be there. I think I'm going to vlog it and put it on this channel, by the way. LSU's got a linebacker, number 40. He's a big white stud. He ranges sideline to sideline. He's a bit crazy, too. He got kicked out of the game. I believe it was the Florida game, I believe, 2 weeks ago. He got kicked out of the game for kind of a bullshit hit. And the cool story about WHIT WEEKS, the LSU linebacker, is that he's got two younger brothers that both play linebacker within Brian Kelly's LSU program. They all three play the same position. I can't remember Witt's brothers' names, but two younger brothers, 3 Weeks brothers, all in the linebacker room for the LSU Tigers right now. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool story. And so WHIT WEEKS, he got disqualified, I believe it was 2 weeks ago. And then his brother came in to play his position as his backup. And then his brother got hurt. I think his brother's name's Wes. His brother Wes gets hurt. And then their youngest brother, the third string, comes in to play and pick up where they left off. It's a pretty cool storyline there in the LSU locker room. But on top of that, I'll pull up my TikTok every now and then, and I'll see Lane Kiffin's daughter, Landry, good-looking gal, right? College-aged, good-looking. Hope to see her this weekend in Oxford. But it wouldn't make any difference because she posted on her Instagram a couple days ago to start this game week a picture with LSU linebacker WHIT WEEKS hard launching, as they call it, their relationship on LSU Ole Miss game week. This shit is diabolical. Whoever came up with this. Maybe Lane put her up to it. Maybe her dad, Lane, put her up to it. And is getting her to maybe get into the mind of Whit and observe some facets of LSU's defensive game plan. Or maybe someone from, I don't know, that seems like the most feasible conspiracy theory. I don't know how LSU could benefit from that. Maybe Whit is playing the heartstrings a little bit on Landry's. Landry's not going to be able. She's a girl, right? So she's probably not going to be able to give old Whit Weeks any insight into what Ole Miss might be doing offensively, but she could. I might be underestimating Lane Kiffin's daughter, Landry. It's a hell of a storyline going into this game week. I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm fired up to be headed down to Oxford on Friday for this game. I'm fired up. I can't remember the last time I was at a true SEC game. I moved to Arizona about 4 years ago. It's definitely hadn't been since I moved out here. It's been before then. Probably going back to my college days, back when college football was a lot different. But that's a big storyline here, especially for me because, you know, I'm going to the game. What else do we got here? I got my little note sheet. I figure out what we have and haven't covered. Obviously, the headline of this episode today we have yet to get into, and we just might shortly. To wrap up our college football chat for today, it was announced that Oklahoma's star quarterback, I believe this guy's a front runner for the Heisman, John Mateer, is having surgery on his throwing thumb, and he's going to be out 3 to 8 weeks. Now, I would imagine that this kid would probably be able to, with quarterbacks, it's really, really finicky when you get into hand and finger injuries because, like we saw with Joe Burrow a couple years ago with his throwing hand in Baltimore, right? If that was his left hand, you probably tape it up. You probably send him right back out there if it's his left hand. But because it's his throwing hand, becomes a whole different story. And so John Mateer has hurt his right throwing thumb. That's what he's getting operated on. And as a quarterback, if you don't have your thumb, you're literally trying to shot put that fucking football. If you don't have your thumb, the thumb is the most important finger on your hand for a quarterback. It's not even close. It's the most important. You squeeze that ball and you're able to spin it a certain way with that thumb. That's what sets us apart from other than consciousness, right? You talk about humans versus other mammals. That's what sets us apart is that thumb. That ability. I mean, obviously you got primates as well with thumbs. But he's going to be out 3 to 8 weeks. And I believe Oklahoma's got a bye coming up, so they'll be able to knock one of those weeks off. But as a quarterback, when you're using that right thumb every single day at practice, you wonder how long it really will take for that to heal. Will that be affecting him beyond when he comes back? My answer would probably be yes. And this guy's, we're talking, I haven't watched much film on John Mateer. In fact, I haven't watched Oklahoma at all yet this year. But word of mouth says that he's the top quarterback in college football right now. Word of mouth says he's a Heisman front runner. So this is a big deal. We're talking about it on the show. If you're a quarterback and you don't have your right thumb and you throw right-handed, you can't throw the ball. Okay. So, interesting little deal that I noticed. I don't know if it was on First Take or somewhere else. Ryan Clark, man, I go back and forth on Mr. Ryan Clark because he was an incredible player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He has every right to be speaking on football and football matters. But I just worry, and I don't want to denigrate my media people, because that's obviously what we're doing too. Like, we're all trying to eat. We're all trying to generate content that people engage with. Like, I understand that part, and I don't want to be hypocritical and criticizing somebody that's frankly doing the same thing I'm trying to do. But Ryan Clark just said something kind of just like, why are you saying this? And he said that the evolution of the black quarterback falls on Lamar Jackson's success. And what I noticed about this is that he totally ignored the fact that Jalen Hurts literally just won a fucking Super Bowl. I just didn't understand why he ignored Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts is black. Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl last year. Putting all this pressure on Lamar, and people are trying to make sense of the Baltimore Ravens right now sitting at 1-2. People are trying to make sense of it. Does Lamar hold the ball too long? I think so. Has Derrick Henry fumbled in big moments because of those sleeves on his arms? I think so. Has their offensive line maybe played up to expectations? Probably not. Has their defense allowed more than any defense in the league in terms of yards per game? Yes. So I think, I mentioned this yesterday. A couple takes on Twitter just made me furious. People are defending Lamar. People are saying, it's not his fault that they're losing. And those literal same people, like Kurt Bankert, those literal, again, I don't want to denigrate people that I'm trying to do the same thing as. But let's develop some consistency in how we're talking about these things, because the same people that are defending Lamar right now are the same people that were saying last year, well, it's on the quarterback to make sure that his team wins, when they were talking about Joe Burrow in Cincinnati last year. There's this distinct anti-Cincinnati narrative and rhetoric in the way all of these major sports media personalities talk. Like, that's how they talk. It just grinds my gears. I'm obviously biased as a Bengals fan. But people defending Lamar. I think FanDuel Sportsbook tweeted something yesterday. It was a carousel of 4 images on Twitter, and it said quarterback's better than Lamar, and it had a picture of Lamar, and then it had like 3 great blocks. It's like, where was that for Burrow last year? Where was it? Nowhere. Because for some reason the media feels like they can't benefit from giving Joe Burrow his flowers. But anyways, so Ryan Clark puts all this pressure on Lamar to be the guy as a black quarterback. And I just wonder, like, is it a cultural thing? Is it because, maybe aesthetically Lamar comes off a little blacker than Jalen Hurts does? Is it because he wears grills and lets his dreads out every now and then? Is it because he's from Florida and he talks a certain way? Is it because he maybe rolls out and scrambles more than any quarterback? Like, what is it? Like, to me, when Ryan Clark says something like that, and I love the Pivot podcast, by the way, and I'm not trying to cut Ryan Clark down. I just didn't understand this take that he made. Maybe it was on First Take. I don't know. But you're basically saying, like, you're basically implying that, like, Jalen Hurts is not black enough or something. It just doesn't make sense. And you're putting all this unnecessary pressure on Lamar. Because, like, Jalen Hurts is a black quarterback, and he literally won the Super Bowl. So I just didn't understand that. And speaking of Jalen Hurts, and this is where it's going to start to get a little juicy here, if it hadn't already been juicy. Okay? I saw a debate on another show And I wanted to chime in on this because I do feel this way myself. And it's the title of the video. Is the Eagles' offense boring? And I could give a short answer to that, but for the sake of the show, I'm going to give a long-winded answer. I'll start by saying that this discussion was spurred by Drew Brees. Drew Brees went on First Take, I believe it was yesterday, and talked about how he thought the Philly offense was boring. And I saw the headline, and my initial reaction was, who gives a fuck if they're boring? They're winning. They're 3-0. Who cares? Wins are wins. And part of me still believes that. But then I kind of thought about it, and I was like, I've known when Philly's played each week the last 3 weeks. And I haven't really felt any desire. I haven't really been like, oh, yes, the Eagles are playing. Yes, I'm going to make sure I sit down and watch the whole game. A lot of times during that afternoon slate, I know last week I was disgruntled because of the Bengals, and I just checked out from football completely, went and played golf. And a lot of times I will say that the NFL afternoon slate, it rolls around at 1 p.m. here in Arizona before the time changes. And by then, you know, I've baked a couple Johns, if you know what I mean. I'm either emotionally very high or very low from the Bengals. I'm very tired a lot of times. And a lot of times during the NFL afternoon slate, I will lay my head down for a nap or go play some golf. So I will give the Eagles that. I'll play devil's advocate. But golly, man, week 2, Eagles play the Chiefs. You'd think that's a game with a lot of allure. And I had it on the TV, but let me just say I was eager to go do other things pretty fast. The Eagles' offense is boring. And I'll tell you exactly why. They rely on Saquon to make people miss. That is the basis of their offense, Saquon. It's probably nothing new for anybody in here that knows football. The basis of the Eagles' offense is Saquon. Okay? And I love a good run game. I wish my Cincinnati Bengals had a good run game. It would fix a lot of things, and it fixes a lot of problems for a team organization like Philly. They rely on Saquon to make people miss. What happened in the Rams game on Sunday was that Lane Johnson went out, their best offensive lineman. Their run game got stopped. And then they had to rely on Jalen Hurts to actually throw the ball downfield. And I think the core of this argument, the core of what I'm trying to say of why the Eagles' offense is boring, you look at the exciting offenses around the league, whether it was the Bengals' offense last year, whether it was the Chiefs' offense when they're in their prime. It seems like they're disgruntled right now, don't really have a wide receiver one. Or any other high-flying, fast, exciting, air raid type of offense. Because, frankly, like, I don't mean to sound like a casual, but football is watching offense is much more exciting when the quarterback's able to throw the ball downfield. Let's just be real. And Jalen Hurts cannot do that. You look at Devontae Smith's production this year. I got him on my fantasy team, so I know Devontae Smith isn't really doing a whole hell of a lot this year. And that's because Jalen Hurts can't throw the ball downfield. A.J. Brown, I haven't gotten to take a look, and I don't want to be a stat merchant. You know, I'm just going based off of the facts. Philly, their whole game, right? let's say the run game gets shut down like it did against the Rams. And give Jalen Hurts credit. The Eagles won, and I believe Jalen Hurts did make some downfield throws late in the game. But typically what they want to do is they want to dink and dunk on 3rd and 4. When it's really short yardage, they obviously want to tush push. And then their defense tends to keep them in games. All of this, by the way, are hallmarks of a great team. And it's why the Eagles are 3-0. They find ways to win. Okay? If you don't have that blocked field goal late in the game on Sunday, I don't know, you're probably sitting at 2-1. But they're not. And you find a way to win. But I don't understand why on these 3rd and long situations, when Jalen Hurts scrambles and makes the first down, that teams don't assign a spy to him, especially if they're in man coverage. Why would you not spy ever in any world? Why would you not spy Jalen Hurts? Because it seems like he breaks out on these off-script scrambles for 3rd down conversions all the time. And then if it's 3rd and 4, they're just going to dink and dunk. But the problem, the core thing I'm getting at here is that, and maybe this is why Ryan Clark didn't mention Jalen Hurts. I don't know. But Jalen Hurts, it just doesn't seem like he can consistently throw downfield balls. It just doesn't seem like he can throw it downfield. And I feel like that's why Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown's production have, to my knowledge, suffered this year. I know Devontae Smith hasn't really been putting out much. Just doesn't seem like Jalen Hurts is comfortable throwing the ball downfield. And that's my knock on the Eagles' offense. Again, they're 3-0. They found ways to win. And it goes to show exactly why an organization like Cincinnati does not win. Because they don't prioritize the run game. They don't prioritize the offensive line. They're too worried about throwing it downfield. They're not worried enough about having defense that can prop up a quarterback that can't throw it downfield. I'd rather have the Philadelphia Eagles offense right now than the Cincinnati Bengals offense. Again, I was kind of trying to clickbait people with the title a little bit. But maybe that's why Ryan Clark didn't mention Jalen Hurts as a guy who represents black quarterbacks. I don't know. It's because he can't throw the ball downfield. But, again, when Drew Brees originally brought this up, when Drew Brees originally mentioned this, I thought to myself, like, what the hell kind of take is this? Like, they're winning. And I thought about it, and I was like, he's right. They are pretty boring, But I guess you got to appreciate good offensive line play. You got to appreciate a great running back. You got to appreciate teams that do the tough things right. And Philadelphia, they do that, man. They do that. I'm looking up and down my note sheet. We started preparing for the show, and I hope it's showing. I hope that that you guys are noticing more coherence in the things we're talking about in each episode. And obviously, doing this every day, we're getting better and better and better. Last thing, I guess, got a couple injuries here. Yeah, I agree. Brees is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. And he never got a Super Bowl. I really hope that Burrow's not in that category with Brees when it's all said and done. I really, dude, frankly, I'm very convinced that Joe is going to request a trade from the Bengals at some point. And I think it's really going to hurt if he requests a trade and we deal him and then he goes and wins Super Bowls elsewhere. And again, the most painful aspect of all this, I keep talking about this with the Bengals, always comes back to the Bengals, is that there's the one group that is responsible for all this, and that's ownership. will not be held accountable unless the fans take action that has never been seen before in the history of sports. Right, because when the Commandees pushed out Dan Snyder, they had a lot of dirt on him. That guy was a real scumbag. You know, he's sexually harassing people. You know, he seemed like a really nasty, evil kind of guy. They had a lot of dirt on him. It was pretty easy to push him out. But that was more personal. You know, at what point are we able to get the attention of the other owners in the league to say Cincinnati's not the Bengals ownership group is filled with narcissistic nepotism babies that are not good to have in this league for the sake of good competition. At what point are we able to bring that to the vast majority of owners' attention in the league? Because all it takes is for other owners in the league to bring this to a vote. That's what they did with Dan Snyder to force him to sell the team. I mean, I could not tell you. I would be so ecstatic if one day I learned that this Brown family was going to be pushed out of ownership with the Bengals, because it would mean so much hope for this city and this organization. Maybe we'll start a GoFundMe and we'll try to fly a banner over the stadium. Oh, yeah, Brees did get a Super Bowl. That's ridiculous. I forgot about that. I've been screwing up a couple times. I've said some things that weren't true on the show the last couple days. Appreciate that. I had somebody in the chat correct me there. Brees did win a Super Bowl, and that was in. Let me think. It was against Indy. I know that. Can't remember where it was though, because I know the Super Bowl. I think it was 2007 in Miami was Colts Bears, and the Colts won that one. Yeah, that's ridiculous. I forgot that. Kind of embarrassing. Okay. Anywho, we got some injuries. CeeDee Lamb, high ankle sprain. 3 weeks or more, he'll be gone. That's really going to negatively affect Dallas's options on offense. And I've already seen a few clips of George Pickens crashing out on the sidelines. Surprise, surprise. That guy's got to get his fucking head screwed on straight, let me tell you. I do too, though, because I forgot that Drew Brees won a Super Bowl against the Colts. Mike Evans, he's got his 8th hamstring strain, and it's unidentified how long he'll be out. And the thing that shocked me most, I did not know this until I was doing my briefings for the show today. Najee Harris tore his fucking Achilles. How brutal for the Chargers. How brutal for Harris. It seemed like he was going to be an instrumental part of that offense. But they do have a really good rookie running back. I think his name's Hampton or something like that. Apparently the kid's really good. I watched him get some reps in the first couple weeks of the season. Seems like he's going to be a really good back in this league. Hampton, I believe, is his name. His number's in like the 30s or something. 36, 33. But that, nonetheless, it's huge. It's an Achilles, man. I don't wish that on anybody. I've never torn mine, but I've known people that have done it, and it just seems like a brutal injury, brutal path to recovery. So I don't know how he did it. Again, I was just doing my briefings for the show today, and this popped up. So I was shocked. Okay, that will do it for today's rendition of In the Jar. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel for me. It helps us a lot. We're doing our best to bring you the top-notch quality football discussion every day, Monday through Friday. 5-ish to 6-ish Eastern. We go live every day. And you'll be able to find each episode on every audio platform you can imagine. You can also watch the replays of the show on this very channel. So in order to not miss those, go ahead and subscribe. And if you don't want to subscribe, that's fine. But at least double tap the screen for me there. It helps us a lot. And with that, we're about to hop on a Madden stream. And I'm no longer playing with the Bengals every game because I don't want those damn Blackburns to benefit from anything I do until they are out of power majority ownership with Cincinnati Bengals. So we're going to do 3 randoms and a suicide and play it that way. Had some success yesterday with the Buffalo Bills. We're trying to take emotion out of it. I know sometimes I enjoy hating on teams like the Bills, but they are fun to play with on Madden. So we're about to get that rocking. I'm going to get this audio episode uploaded for you guys so that if you popped in late, you can listen to it in the car or something like that while you're doing laundry. Something like that. Okay. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. And we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Thursday night game. See you guys then. Or see you on Madden. Appreciate it.